mic on so you can all hear me. We are going to call the regular meeting of the Hermiston City Council and Urban Renewal Agency to order. We have a quorum. We are missing the mayor, Councilor Harden, and Councilor McCarthy. They're all excused. So let's join me for the flag salute, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Starting off with proclamations, presentations, and recognitions. And we, Mr. Council, do we have any changes?
No.
Okay. Okay, so we're starting off with proclamation of the National Day of Prayer, and I will read said proclamation. Whereas throughout history, Americans have lifted up fervent prayers to God on behalf of our nation. From the first gathering of our founding fathers, elected officials have prayed and entreated those they serve and represent to join them in prayer, including the authors of our Declaration of Independence, who wrote that they, quote, "The representatives of the United States of America in General Congress assembled appealed to the Supreme Judge of the world," end quote, and carried on our present day in presidential proclamations such as last year's invitation to, quote, "join him in asking for God's continued guidance, mercy, and protection," end quote. And whereas a National Day of Prayer has not only been a part of our heritage since it was declared by the First Continental Congress in 1775, but it is a public law established in the United States Congress in 1952, approved by a joint resolution and amended by Congress and President Reagan with Public Law 100-307 in 1988, affirming that it is essential for us as a nation to pray and directing the President of the United States to set aside and proclaim the first Thursday of May annually as a National Day of Prayer. And whereas in our state and across America, the observance of the National Day of Prayer will be held on Thursday, May 4th, 2023, with the theme, "Pray fervently in righteousness and avail much." And whereas every first Thursday of May on the National Day of Prayer, we not only express our faith and exercise of our freedom in prayer, but unite our hearts and voices in personal prayer and public gatherings throughout our state, counties, and cities across America with fervent praise, repentance, love, and humble intercession for our neighbors and nations, knowing that God hears and avails much as he answers the faith-filled prayers of his people. Now, therefore, I, Doug Primer, Council President of Hermiston, Oregon, do hereby proclaim May 4, 2023 as National Day of Prayer in our city, and I commend this observance to all of our citizens. Signed this 24th day of April, 2023. And I'm going to sign that right now. So, with that, please. Sometimes we need help. Okay. Next up is our citizen input on non-agenda items. Anyone wishing to bring anything before the council that is not on the agenda is asked to please do the following. Limit your comments to not more than 5 minutes. State your name and address, then direct your comments to me, the chair. Do we have anybody that wishes to address the council at this time? Nobody. Okay. Consent agenda. Is there consent agenda items A and B? Is there any council comments regarding consent agenda items A and B? Seeing none, are there any items that need to be removed from this? Seeing none. Any public comment regarding consent agenda items A and B? Seeing none. Can I get a motion to approve consent agenda items A and B?
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded by Jackie and Jackie. Can I get a roll call?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Motion passes. And just as a reminder, as council president, I do get to vote unlike the mayor. So if you guys are wondering why that happens. No items removed from the consent agenda. So we will move on to number 8, public hearings. Supplemental budget number 4 for fiscal year July 1, 2022 to June 30, 2023. And it'll be in regards to resolution 2267. First, are there any declarations of a conflict of interest from the council? Seeing none, can I get the hearing guidelines presented by city staff?
City Council is holding a public hearing for the City of Hermiston Supplemental Budget number 4 for fiscal year 22-23. The City Council will take public testimony on this issue and make a decision at this meeting. The hearing process will begin with a staff report followed by public testimony. The Council requests that all people wishing to testify give their name and mailing address before testifying. People wishing to testify should limit testimony to not more than 5 minutes unless a longer period is provided by the City Council. Written testimony will also be accepted. After everyone wishing to testify has had an opportunity to speak, the City Council will close the public hearing and enter deliberations. Once the public hearing is closed, no further testimony will be received. That's it. Thank you.
All right, so with that, the hearing is now open. City staff will now present its report.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Council President, members of the council, the supplemental budget here in front of you tonight addresses a couple of items that needed to be taken care of, and the reason it's so late in the year mostly is because we were waiting to finalize all the bills related to City Hall construction so that we could make a final transfer of funds into that fund. So you'll see the major transfers or changes in the budget are transferring funds from the general fund to the City Hall construction fund in the amount of about $645,000, and then on the other side, a transfer from the general fund into the construction fund, and also a transfer from the urban renewal area. So we bundled in the City Hall construction project, the reconstruction of the west parking lot here, and that was paid for by the urban renewal district. That's one of the projects that was in the plan, was to improve parking in the downtown area, and so we just in order to try to save as much from a construction standpoint, we bundled that with the construction of City Hall. So those are the major items, but I would be open to questions or anything about any portions of this supplemental budget.
Okay. Public testimony. People wishing to speak are asked to state their name, mailing address, and limit testimony to 5 minutes. Are there any persons who wish to speak regarding this issue? Seeing none. All right, hearing is now closed. Is there any further council discussion? Council, any questions for City Manager Smith? Mr. Krause? Okay. Moving on to the next thing, which is ordinances and resolution. Amazingly enough, it is Resolution 2267, the supplement to the year 2023 budget. City Manager Smith.
Yes, I'd be happy to answer any questions related to the supplemental budget.
Any council comments regarding the supplemental budget? None. Okay. Any public comment regarding the supplemental budget? Okay, seeing none. Can I get a motion to adopt Resolution 2267 and lay upon the record?
So moved. Second.
Been moved by Councilor Duran, seconded by Councilor Meyer, that we adopt Resolution 2267 and lay upon the record. Can I get a roll call?
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes. Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Next, Resolution 2268, execute franchise agreement with Zipley Fiber Pacific LLC. City Manager Smith.
Yes, I'll ask Mr. Morgan.
Yes, Mr. Council President, Mayor, members of the council, many of you are familiar that the city, as controller of the public right-of-way, we have franchise agreements in place with all of the private utility companies that use the rights-of-way to put their infrastructure in. So that's things like electric utilities, telecoms, gas utility, those types of entities can put their facilities in our right-of-way. And so we have an agreement that lines out the rules of what they can and can't do. And so we have a new to us telecom company who's requested a franchise agreement to put infrastructure in the rights of way. And so that's Zipley Fiber. They purchased Frontier Communications Northwest territorial assets here back in 2020. So that's why I say they're new to us. They have a new name from what they've been regionally, but they are an established telecom company that's been operating across the Northwest for many years prior to this. So they're requesting to be able to serve customers in the city. Our city attorney and franchise attorney have reviewed their agreement, and we recommend approval of their franchise agreement.
Any council comments? I have one or two questions. Since they're going to be putting in, are these going to be overhead, below ground? Are they going to be using existing
Yes,
infrastructure?
to all. So it's going to be a combination. They'll be doing, I'm sure, probably predominantly aerial installation of fiber throughout the community with new construction in like neighborhoods, that type of thing. They'll have to go underground in certain residential areas, and then there's also areas of the community that customers may want service, but they don't quite have their fiber optic backbone built out into that area yet. So they'll also include some transmission facilities where they'll be able to do wireless transmission of internet into some other areas of the community. So that's their intention, and we'll see how they build out and serve their customers.
So the intention is to cover basically the entire city, not just portions with fiber?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to know that bridge contracting is going to be 5% that this company pays. Did you check with other cities to see if it's comparable to what they also charge?
Yeah, so that's what our standard rate is for telecom companies for their franchises in Hermiston. We did a pretty extensive review of the franchise fees that we charge for all the various utilities here back in 2017. That's when we adjusted all of our telecom franchise fees as well as our electricity franchise fees, and then we adjusted most of those up, and we dedicated the marginal increase to street maintenance and street preservation. So all that's to say, at the time when we looked at it pretty intensively back in 2017, we were a little bit below market in terms of what most of the other areas were charging for most of these things, and so we increased it to where we're right in line with most of our peer cities elsewhere in Oregon.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Meyer.
So there will be some new construction on that?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's all new construction as far as their infrastructure that's going in.
But it goes in with the other stuff, or is it new?
Yeah.
Yeah, just goes in with the other.
Well, where typically where you see existing overhead utilities, that's probably where they're going to be locating.
Are they planning on having any offices here, just like some of the other telecom companies? Or are they planning on working remotely?
I couldn't tell you if they're gonna have a local office. I'm sure they'll have local technicians so that when the internet goes down, somebody's there to respond. Otherwise, they won't gain much market share, I'm sure.
Awesome. I think it's great that we have more options here as citizens in Hermiston, and more competition, I think, is definitely a good thing. Hopefully, ultimately, the citizens here will benefit.
Okay, any public comment? Seeing none. Okay, can I get a motion to adopt resolution 2268 and lay upon the record?
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned by Councilor Barone and seconded by Councilor Drawn that we adopt motion 2268 and lay upon the record. Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Excellent. Resolution 2269, authorize an information technology service agreement with Horizon Projects Incorporated. City Manager Smith.
Yes, so, Council President, members of the council, we're almost to our annual first anniversary of providing IT services. And things have been going well. I think our customers are pleased. Up to this point, all of our customers have been other local governments, cities, counties, special districts. Horizon Project, the one that's before you tonight, is the first nonprofit that's approached the city. And they have been a partner of the city for many years. For a long time, they administered a business loan program that we received grant funding for. And then more recently, we've had opportunities to work with them as they look for sites to provide housing for the developmentally disabled, which is kind of their, I would say, their core business. That's what they do a lot of. And so they were a former customer, or I guess as of today, still a current customer of the IMESD. And I think I mentioned in a meeting previous to this that the IMESD is canceling all of their agreements with non-school district customers. And so we've had kind of a rush. Horizon Project was a little bit ahead of the rest of the group as far as talking with us about this. We've tried to be slow and measured and make sure we can provide quality services to all of our customers, but we also don't want to leave some of these smaller agencies kind of without an option. And so we will be coming to you probably closer to July 1st with about 4 more interested customers if everything works out as they've indicated to us. But this is the kind of the first one of these that are losing their service provider as of July 1. So they wanted to get ahead of that a little bit, and their contract allowed them to sever their agreement early. So they want to start May 1st, and then we'll go into a kind of a standard time frame starting July 1st with them. So the current proposal in front of you is a monthly fee of $6,192 for 12 hours a week, and then that would go up in July to $7,440 for 14 and a half hours. Now, they have locations around the county, but right now, one of the values of our current set of employees is that they set up a lot of these networks for these smaller agencies, and so they are familiar with how they operate and familiar with their systems, and so we are comfortable that within our current staffing we can provide his service. Now, when we get to discussions about the 4 additional customers that we would potentially be requesting to be able to hire another person at that point. But right now, we feel like we can provide the service under our current staffing. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Councilor Meyer.
So in July, are they then still monthly, or do they have a contract till the end of the year?
Yeah, it would go into what we've set up mostly as a 3-year contract. so that we can, they know there's some continuity and we also have that comfort. But we wanted all of them to renew in July so we could, you know, kind of have that standard time to keep track of it.
Thank you.
Councilor Brown?
So when they cancel, when they're done with their services with the IMESD, they get to keep their equipment? Or does
Right.
the ESD?
Well, each customer is kind of different with Verizon Project. I think it's pretty clean break that they've purchased all their equipment and they will maintain all of that. The ESD would just purchase it on their behalf and then they would install it and maintain it, but it was theirs. Just like that was similar to our agreement with them as well. As all the servers and everything were ours, but they maintained them and installed them. So.
That's pretty much standard though with most of our
Yes, that would be, and that would be how we're doing it with all of our customers.
In the future, as we move forward there, people will supply their own equipment, we just service.
Right, and we usually order it for them and all that, but they pay for it and it's theirs, but we do all the installation and maintenance.
Yes, ma'am.
I could just share a thought, and that is that I think, we didn't really predict how this was going to end up rolling out, but I think that we are in a unique position to serve the community in a way that we hadn't expected, but it's almost kind of a gift because, the goal of government is that we're there for the community when they need us, and so this is a way that, we have a community provider that actively serves the people directly, and they have a need where we already have something set up. We're like, hey, yeah, we can help out there. And to be able to do that in such a direct connection, I think is fantastic, and to know that we have the capability of building that out. And that's kind of like a sapling, if you will, that has the potential to, be of even greater service longer down the road. And I think this is kind of a pretty unique little glittery moment, if you'll take my words that I used with the chief a few weeks ago. I like sparkles, so anything that we can put sparkles on. I think this is a good sparkly moment of I think this is a win.
Noted. Okay, anybody else? Counselor?
IT services also provide like cybersecurity type services, is that correct?
Yes, we would be making recommendations to them about, software or any hardware that would enhance or give them the ability to have the best cybersecurity that they could have.
Excellent. We've had conversations even on the LOC level about municipalities, even nonprofits being hacked and held for ransom for different things. And so I think much like Councilor Peterson was saying, this is definitely a great service that we can provide, especially to the level of service that we provide. And if this is something that we're able to do, then I'd say let's do it. So that's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any public comment? Seeing none. Can I get a motion to adopt resolution 2269 and lay upon the record?
So moved. Second.
Moved by I guess on bookends on that, because they both did it at the same time. And seconded, so let's, get a roll call.
Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Moving along to the next item, review and possible approval of PATH project strategic plan. City Manager Smith.
Yes, thank you. So one of the requirements for the pilot project funding that we received as a group was to have a 5-year strategic plan for the project so that the state could recognize that we were thinking more than just about the current year or the current amount of money. And so the board or the advisory committee for PATH, as well as the contractor, have been working together on this plan. This really is seeking feedback. If there's things that the council sees needs to be in, we would propose or be planning to bring this back for adoption by each of the entities next month, which would meet our basically June 1st deadline to have adopted a strategic plan. So this is really seeking any comments, trying to address any questions, and so I'd be happy to hear any feedback.
Okay. So, yes, ma'am.
I have questions.
Let's hear them.
Okay. I was reading in the report that, I think it's on page 5, paragraph 2, where it says that it's going to accommodate 1 to 2 people, and I was wondering about families like mother and or a father that have 2 or 3 children. Will it be able to accommodate them?
Right, at this point, that is not the plan for this particular program. They would be working in close collaboration with the Agape House, or actually the Eastern Oregon Mission Martha's House, for those families who might need some place to stay.
Okay.
So this would be only targeting, you know, the kind of that smaller family group.
Okay, and for those that will be seeking employment, is there anything set up like a phone and or address that they can use? Because trying to get a job, those are maybe 2 things that they would have to have.
Well, they would be, I know the Stepping Stones staff has been building relationships with a lot of different potential partners, so, you know, they'll be working with people who will be able to help them through seeking a job, and I believe, you know, the intention is that they could use the address of the facility, and there will be resources there, computer resources, things like that, to help them, you know, in a job search.
Okay. Has the transportation issue, has that been resolved? Because I know last year they were having problems and still in discussion.
Right, so we have a temporary fix right now, so a community partner has donated the use of a van that they are able to get a ride and picked up here near City Hall to be able to go to the sleep center and back. We're still in discussions with Kayak about permanent fixed route bus service to the area so that they would have other options, but all of that has not been finalized yet.
Okay. Will there be homeless teens be allowed to stay there? Or is there an age limit?
I would have to come back. That one, I don't believe they're going to be able to have a minor stay there, and so I think that would be, again, in partnership with some other surrounding agencies to try to find them a place to stay.
Okay.
And I know that from the Stepping Stones folks, that's something that they're interested in trying to find a solution for, but doesn't in this situation.
Okay, I would like my last question. Will Project Path provide other translations other than English and Spanish if needed?
I'm sure they would work at finding, if somebody needed some other language assistance, they would work to find that, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Durham?
So with the transportation, the temporary transportation setup that you have right now, how is that being advertised so that folks know about that option?
I think they're mostly doing that word of mouth, so the people who are utilizing the sleep center are communicating with them, and I don't know that they're communicating it any more broadly than that. Okay, they do have it on their electronic communication Facebook webpage as well.
Just a question, I think, I don't know if it's for the council, for you, city manager, is our mayor is our liaison from the council to the.
Correct.
Okay. Awesome. So you'd be able to bring back any information, updates, right?
That's right.
So I do have one concern right off the top of my head from something you said earlier. Receiving mail at that location, that, from my understanding of landlord-tenant laws, that creates a possible issue. That's.
I know that's been a concern, particularly in making sure we stay away from the entanglements of landlord-tenant law. And so they are, I don't know if that means that they'll have a P.O. box that would be then accessible, but I know that they're also working through some other means that would, basically, that you get a membership at PATH that is also another way that they have worked out in consultation with some legal advice that would help them avoid that landlord-tenant provisions.
Okay.
And I know they have specifically talked with attorneys about that to try to make sure that they don't run into any problems with that, with evictions or not having to go through that process. So,
Ms. Peterson.
So I have a question in regards to sometimes houseless individuals will actually be individuals that have developmental disabilities that would otherwise qualify for SSI and supported living housing. I'm not seeing any, I see DHS on here, which would, include like DVR and that sort of situation. This is all one big happy family. But I'm wondering if we've looked at any DVR, or any developmentally disabled adult groups to possibly bring in on the conversation, because some individuals may be able to go straight from homelessness to assisted living, and they just slip through the cracks.
that's a great point. I will make sure and bring that up, and we can add those as some of those agencies' potential partners as well.
Councilor.
Yes. The other cities that are going through this process, have the other cities raised any concerns?
I know that I've seen some emails related to some questions that came up at Umatilla County Commissioner meeting. But the other cities, I have not seen any major questions or concerns. That's why we wanted to have this opportunity to get the feedback, and then we would be able to come back and show you, what things were changed, or if there were anything that was addressed through that process. So we'll be able to know when we bring it back next month.
Perfect. I appreciate Councilor Peterson's comment, and hopefully you can take that back.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great suggestion. We can definitely get that incorporated.
Thank you.
Did you say the drop-off for the transportation is City Hall?
Right now, yes. We're working on some other possible locations. The folks who are at the sleep center don't particularly like coming here, and there's been some issues related to being here as well, so we're trying to find something that works better, but we haven't finalized that.
Yes.
Okay, when individuals get jobs just starting out, will there be transportation from the sleep center to the job that they're going to? And if they do get a job while they're there, how long will they be able to stay there after they have employment?
So, one of the things I know that Stepping Stones is working on is some grant funding to purchase a vehicle for PATH, so then they would be able to be more flexible and have the opportunity to help people get to work or other appointments, things like that. And as long as they are, there's going to be requirements as far as, if searching for housing, searching for work. Once you have a job, you can continue to stay there as long as you're continuing to look for a place to live you know, if you're on waiting lists, or, you know, we recognize, and I think Stepping Stones recognizes that, you know, there's a housing shortage. There's just not enough for, in this entry level kind of somebody just getting on their feet type of a situation. So as long as they're continuing to do those things, they'll be able to stay there. And that's kind of one of the next phases, is to look at, you know, can we work on a project where we could build, you know, tiny homes where they could take a next step that is, you know, not quite into an apartment complex or a, you know, one of the a single family home, but gives them a chance to have a little bit more responsibility and space and continue to progress in that way.
But the bottom line, this is primary intention is a very temporary place to stay, basically.
Right,
This is not a housing solution. This is a temporary fix.
Right, this is to help people get, you know, on their own, get into their own kind of housing and whatever that solution might look like.
Peters.
Just in regards to like a vehicle to help people get to their work and stuff like that, I would just suggest that keeping the markings on the vehicle, I mean, obviously this is way in the future, but keeping the markings of the vehicle where it came from to a minimal, just because people want their privacy and they're more likely to, you know, have their pride if they are just dropped off like
Sure,
a regular person going to work.
sure, I'll
They
take that.
feel like a normal person going to work
Yeah.
as they are.
And it could be like a magnet, put on and take it off.
Well, it is a bad program, so.
Okay. So, any other comments to bring forward for that? Okay. Public comments. Step up. Please remember to state your name, address.
Quick questions. Okay, my name is Jennifer Roberts, 1709 Northeast 6th Place. I just had a couple questions after reading through this, and I don't know if they fit within the 5-year strategic plan or not. I noticed there was nothing in there specifically listing what the rules would be. There's just statement that there will be rules. Same with security, there's no discussion about what the security actually is going to be. And then it lists that each of the cities and the counties will be responsible for funding for it, but there's no amounts listed, even for like the coming year. And then when you read over the committee members list, there's nobody from the city council listed on there. Is Councilman McCarthy on the committee? Thank you, that's it.
Okay, let me see if I can catch all those. First, as far as the rules and some of the details, that's more of an operational thing, and this is more of a strategic plan looking at some of the big picture issues, so not dealing with those kind of details. The funding piece, we left it in their kind of open-ended because there's a number of requests for funding through the state to kind of help with these kinds of projects. And for this current year, we do have grant funding and hope to be able to stretch that into probably the first 2 years of operation, to stretch that initial funding for that use. And so there would be no specific obligation for the cities or the county at that until those funds are exhausted. And then I think, as we talked about at a recent meeting, the initial makeup of the advisory committee for PATH was the city managers and Commissioner Doran. But as I committed, we're actually going to meet later this week, and we'll bring that up with the advisory committee about how, what the committee could look like in the future as we kind of move from some of these initial steps into more long-term operations and discussions. So I'll be happy to report back to the council on our discussion on that after our meeting on Thursday.
So as this is a 5-year plan, that should be part and parcel with that.
Sure.
Okay. In regards to one of the things that Ms. Roberts Mrs. Roberts brought up was security. Who's going to be the primary responding agency for if in the event that there's an issue out there?
So the facility is located in the city of Umatilla, and they would be the primary responding, but I know have been some discussions, maybe not all the way detailed, but among the sheriff as well as Chief Hermiston, so.
Any other public comment? Yes, sir.
My name's Dennis Dickens. I live at 28431 South Shore Drive in Umatilla. This is the first time I heard you're going to be putting homeless people in my neighborhood. I don't mind in mentally ill people as long as they're well supervised, but I definitely don't want able-bodied men who are going to cause trouble. All right, that I don't, and obviously my tax dollars are going to go for this. And I worked my whole life. Don't expect me to pay for somebody that's too lazy to work.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comment? Councilor Brown?
To address the last question that Mrs. Roberts had, it is Mayor Drossman that is the representative from the council.
Sorry, I forgot.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I get a motion to adopt the Project Path strategic plan as presented?
And I'm sorry, that was probably not quite done well on your script. We were just looking for feedback tonight, and we'll be bringing that back for official adoption next month. So thank you for the feedback.
Never mind.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're done with that issue or that item at this time. There's nobody else got anything else to throw out of it? No? Okay. Okay. March 2023 financial report. City Manager Smith.
I'll turn this over to Mr. K.
Left it on. Council Presidents, councilors, thank you for having me tonight. March is 3/4 of the way through the year. First slide we look at is HURA. For all intents and purposes, we have collected 100% of the property tax revenue in 9 months for HURA. I think I mentioned 2 months ago that I figured they would be somewhere north of 100%, around 105 of property tax revenue, because we've had some nice growth in the district. So they're doing well. In the general fund on our resources, we're a little short this month compared to our projected $48,000, but we're more than making up for that on the expense containment side. We're sitting pretty well going into the last quarter of the year as far as the balance in the fund. On the expenditure side, we have achieved this month $405,000 in savings versus projected expenses. It has been communicated quite well to department heads, save money, because we're in a stress situation with the general fund, and it's being borne out in their efforts to control their expenditures. I give them kudos for that. Don't stop now, let's keep going. With regards to the detail in those expenditures, we have our 4 different classifications of the departments: administration, public services, public safety, and non-departmental. I'm happy to report that all of them are below projected and what I call in the black, because of our savings and focus on not making expenditures that aren't necessarily mission critical. So I'm very comfortable with that. Right now for the year, we have achieved somewhere just north of $1 million worth of savings and expenditures to date. General fund balance is sitting fairly well at this time. Projected, we were better than projected by about maybe about $100,000. fund balance in March is just north of 6 million. And we're getting into the fourth quarter where we start seeing a lot less revenue come into the general fund because of the time of year, and a little more expenditures as we ramp up operations in Parks and Rec and municipal pool. So there will be a lot of expenditures in support of those efforts into the spring and summer months starting the year, as well as getting the pool ready for opening up for the summer. So all in all, for the general fund and Cura, things are looking well, but we always have to be cognizant of managing our expenditures and proper use of our resources. I've tried to do something different for our capital projects updates. I have, and thank goodness our city recorder got a new slide format that lets it be bigger on the screen, that I can almost read it from standing here. But you have in your packet each one of these projects with an update, and Mr. Morgan's going to handle the 5 updates that I've highlighted in yellow. The first being well number 5 water system improvements. And I'll let Mr. Morgan address these one by one.
Yes, so the well number 5 project is really probably best thought of in kind of 2 different components. One being an expansion of the total output of water that we can pump out of that well. That's really kind of the main driving force behind what we're doing there. Most of that work is not going to occur until later on in the fall, so that we can avoid the peak irrigation season, because well number 5 is by far and away our largest producing well in the city. So the second part of the project is extending or adding a new water main from well number 5 to connect up to another portion of the system. To orient you, well number 5 is located beyond the outfield fences of Theater Sports Park. They're kind of behind the theater. And so the new connection that we're making is running new transmission main basically behind the outfield fences of the Theater Sports Park to the northwest and connecting up with the water main near the intersection of Gear and Theater Lane. They are doing that interconnection here very soon. I think there's some traffic impacts that are occurring actually this week associated with that project. So that project is continuing along well, and as I mentioned in the update, it is going to be a relatively long project just because we're doing the piping connection portion now, and then later on in the fall after irrigation season we'll be doing the pumping components to increase the output for next irrigation season.
The next update is with Lift Station 3 upgrade, and pretty much this has been done and closed out. We're just managing to pay off last few bills that are associated with it, but I think the work is actually finished.
I am happy to report it is finished.
So
I was kind of curious as to how it's 136% finished.
that means it's a little over budget.
It's more than a little.
Well, yes, sir.
Yeah, so I'm trying to see what because that number has bounced around quite a bit. So I can see in the 22-23 budget, we show it as, I think it was 550,000. I need the mayor here to upgrade my prescription, I guess. But, anyway, so that was the part of the original cost estimate. Again, you'll remember that that project was originally envisioned to basically decommission the lift station located there, that's actually physically located in the westernmost travel lane of 395 in front of Auto Cool and the Holiday Inn Express, and run a new gravity line underneath the railroad lines off to the west. So that was estimated to be that amount. Ultimately, when bids came in, they came in high, and then subsequent to that, as we were boring underneath the railroad tracks, we hit a significant obstruction. The contractor had to fully demobilize and then remobilize back in several months later with a much larger piece of equipment, which significantly drove up the cost. So I'm very happy to see this project now finally done. The total cost coming in at ultimately total cost by the time everything's said and done is going to be about $1.3 million. again, as a frame of reference, the lift station that we were replacing was installed in the early 80s, or at least it was replaced in the early 80s. The cost estimate to fully replace that lift station at the time, this was 3 years ago, was about $950,000. So there were numerous reasons for opting to go with this option instead of just replacing all of the existing pumps and motors down in that manhole back in the time. Not the least which was originally estimated to cost less upfront, but also when you have anything like pumps, motors, electronics, those types of things down in a manhole, it's a highly acidic and corrosive environment down in those manholes, and so it eats through equipment very quickly. And so we were able to make that lift station last almost 40 years. It needed to be replaced longer before that, but the upshot still of switching and decommissioning that lift station and going to a gravity system where there are no pumps and motors is that the PVC piping associated with this new solution should last, at least 100 years or more with the PVC, whereas if we were to just go in and replace the pumps and motors, it'd probably be stretching it to think that we could make that last 40 years. So we'd probably be looking at doing a full replacement of that lift station 2 or 3 times by the time that we would need to go in and do major work to replacing the line. So it is over budget. We've talked about that quite a bit every month when we give this presentation, but it's still, I think, long term, it's still going to end up being a cost savings to the community in the long run. Okay.
But then one that's near and dear to my heart because it's not our money. We have the Amazon Web Services system expansion as the next, I'm sorry, Penny Avenue. I got ahead of myself. The Penny Avenue extension.
Yeah, so I'm happy to report, again, this is extending Penny Avenue, which right now is considered kind of like the main entrance to Ranch and Home, if you can think of up in that area. And it basically dead ends back at our well number 5 behind the Ranch and Home facility. This would extend that street all the way back to connect up to Kelly Boulevard and provide another direct access back to the industrial area back there. That project is funded 50-50 by the city as well as an ODOT grant for immediate opportunity funds for economic development. I'm happy to report that we had our pre-construction conference today. Everything appears to be lined up and ready to go well, and I saw them pushing dirt on the project this morning. It's a very simple project. I see that I put in that slide, I must have been hedging my bets that completion was anticipated by late fall of this year. Based on the schedule that we got from the contractor this morning, we'll probably be wrapping up the bulk of the project here by the end of June of this year. So it's really, there's not a whole lot of utility improvements. It's just building a new road in virgin topsoil, and based on how our project to install streets in the Southern Industrial Park went, don't anticipate any major challenges. Excellent.
Now I'll talk about the AWS system expansion, and Mr. Morgan was kind enough to remind me this is actually 2 projects that we have broken apart from the initial information provided to you in prior months. The first one has to do with extending the city-owned water line to provide water to the campuses. Mr. Morgan.
Yeah, so this first one that we're showing for $3.9 million is what we consider to be phase 1 of the water supply side of things for the Amazon campuses. The contractor, which is Rachi, has been on site out there for about a month now, and they have been moving along very quickly, laying pipe from in Feedville Road, beginning near South 1st Street, near the Bureau's Feed Canal, heading off to the east. They have a temporary signal out there to help them with flagging, so there's a lot of construction traffic utilizing Feedville Road right now, so there's a lot going on. They've almost reached the intersection with Kelly as of last week, so that project is continuing along well with no major hiccups so far. We anticipate supplying the Amazon campus with water by our contracted supply date of September of this year.
And the last update with regards to Amazon Web Services is their cooling discharge process.
Yes, so one of the components that we're assisting Amazon with is with their air conditioning process to keep their computer systems cool throughout the summer. We're not only supplying them with water on the incoming side of things, as well as accepting the water to be discharged out the back end. We've been working with them for several years now on what that solution is going to look like. And so where we've ended up at is we will be accepting their discharge, which is just basically run through air conditioners and then comes out the other side looking like slightly more concentrated river water, which is what we supplied to them. We will be accepting that at a lift station in Feetville Road, sending it off to the west to First Place, and then having it gravity north in First Place down to discharge into Hermiston Irrigation District's A-Line Canal. So at peak discharge, we anticipate supplying them with a volume of water that will ultimately come out to about 5% of what the average flow of HID's A-Line Canal is. So ultimately that will end up increasing the amount of water that HID has available to provide for irrigators further down their system by about 5% once we're sending that water to them. So what you see there for the project at $805,000, that is our contract with Anderson Perry to do all of the design work on that cooling water discharge project. And then after they finish all the design work, then we'll have another contract and put out to bid for actual construction of those improvements. So far things are going well on the design front for that project.
And just a side note, because I don't think we've mentioned it, this is on a reimbursable basis. We do the work for them, they reimburse us. It's no money out of the city's pockets. And with that, I stand any questions.
Questions? Mr. Brown?
Just on that last one, is there going to be any need to, you said there was going to be more concentrated river water, so are we going to just need a special permit, or are we going to need to treat the water before it goes out into the irrigation?
No, well, we will have a special permit, so we are working with DEQ on that right now. We don't anticipate seeing any major challenges associated with that. Probably the biggest benefit that we have from discharging to the A-Line Canal there is that short of one gate that can be opened for discharging that canal into the Umatilla River, ultimately the A-Line Canal snakes its way back and forth through Hermiston, supplying water as it goes, and then ends up dumping in the wetlands that are basically located between Hermiston and Umatilla. So there's no direct default discharge to the Columbia River. So we've had good conversations. DEQ's been well aware that this process is coming, and so yeah. So we'll have an additional permit, but we don't anticipate seeing any denial on that permit.
So we don't have to worry about temperature being a problem.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. President. My question is, they will be paying the full industrial amount of the charge for the water? Are they getting any discounts now or in the future?
Yeah, so as Mr. Krosick mentioned, what we're showing up there, that's just the capital construction piece, and so they are obligated to provide 100% of the cost of constructing all of the capital improvements, and then on the water supply side of things, they will be paying, when I mentioned this is phase one, they'll be taking potable water for their first phase. They will be paying the same rate that all of their customers in Hermiston pay for potable water. And then when phase two comes along, right behind it next year, they'll just be taking raw, untreated Columbia River water, and that's through the regional water system, and they will be paying the same rate that all of the other users on the regional water system pay for that water. On the sewer side of the cooling water discharge side of things, because we will be taking their sanitary sewer to the treatment plant, but that's really minimal flows. What we're designing with what I just mentioned That is a completely separate system that will not ever touch our sewer treatment works. So that really is a different type of sewer discharge. For that one, they are going to be our only customer on the system, and so we've communicated to them explicitly through this process that they're going to be the only customer on the system. We're only operating it for them, and so any costs associated with the system will come in the form of their rate that they end up paying. So we don't have a rate established yet. Number of reasons for that. One being, we don't have the system designed yet, but I also we've given direction to Anderson Perry so that once they design the system, we'd like them to run a life cycle cost analysis on things like right now it's anticipated there's going to be 2 lift stations, and then also the transmission piping itself to get there. And so we'd like to know what the long-term potential capital replacement cost of that system is. Still some negotiations to be had with the company, but I would like us to begin recouping some of those things as they go, rather than 50 years down the road, all of a sudden something breaks and things have changed and they don't want to pay for the system. So to answer your question, yes, they'll be paying what everybody else is paying, and when they are discharging their cooling water, we will develop a special rate that is segregated just for the system that's serving them.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And if I understood you correctly, and please correct me if I didn't, as a consequence also, the people that will be getting the irrigation water will be getting actually more than they would normally have had available as a consequence of this. So the local residents will benefit from, just because they're in the right place to receive this added.
Yeah, and so it's really, Hermiston Irrigation District is the one that would theoretically be receiving it, and so then, yeah, I'm sure it will assist in them being able to deliver water to their various customers throughout the season.
No additional cost to.
No additional cost to HID, yeah, we're thankful that they're accepting the water from us.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, any council comments in regards to the financial report? Seeing none. Any public comment in regards to the financial report? Seeing none. Can I get a motion to accept the March financial report?
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned by Council Duran, second by Council Meyer, that we accept the March financial report. Can I get a roll call?
Yes.
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 Passes unanimously. City committees and liaisons. Do we have any reports? What's that?
Some of the committees that I sit on, we have not met yet.
Do you have, okay, go ahead.
I thought Rob was going to be here.
He's not.
I see that. Making it up.
You can call him, I guess.
Okay, I went to my first faith-based advisory committee. And each schools has been adopted by different churches, and Loma Vista has now been adopted by New Hope, and it helps with different things that the class or the school may need. They talked about I Love My City, which is coming up on May 20th from 9 to 12. And they're going to be meeting at EOTech, and then May 21st at 10 to 12, and also meeting at EOTech. The Family Promise Committee has been picked up by Major Thrive. And there was a question asked about CAB. And so they had a little discussion about CAB and what was its original, how it was set up originally. And they had a 93% success rate. The committee wants to meet with the mayor and ask what we can do better for the city of Hermiston. And that is all.
Okay. Any other council committee reports? Seeing none. All right, next, council president report. I had the unfortunate honor of attending the services for the fallen officer for NISA last Saturday. The turnout from this area was, to say the least, amazing. There was so many people from so many agencies. We had representatives from every entity within our county and our area that went there. There were from all over the Pacific Northwest. It was a very tearful moment, to say the least. My heart goes out to the family and the people of NISA for their loss. It's especially important for me to bring forward that the officer that was killed was a reserve. I have the honor of serving as a reserve and have I'm coming up on 40 years now. So, but the officer that was killed was a volunteer. He did not get paid to take that bullet. He did that in protection of his community, out of the goodness of his heart. And no more can be said for someone than willing to put their life on the line for others. And to me, that was, you talk about sacrifices and the ultimate sacrifice, and he did pay that for his community. And to him and to his family, I thank them personally. And I would say, as a city, we also owe them a thank you for that. And to Jason, that's one of those things that I hate going to those because they're so important. And I've been to too many over the years, and so I appreciate you sending the folks that you did. They represented your city well. So beyond that, I don't have anything else for my end of things. So, council.
I have a couple of things, sorry. I don't know how I can get this on an agenda. I'm hoping for a work session where we can do it there with the water department personnel that go out, if they can be trained in CPR, and also the use of defibrillators. And I would also like to request that the UMCFD department, number one, be invited at least quarterly to give a report to City Council. And those are two things that I have.
Okay. Do not all city employees not go through first aid and CPR training?
We do. And we're actually in the process of just everybody's getting their certifications renewed in the next, few months. So all of our employees have that training.
Okay, are they allowed to carry around defibrillators as well? Be trained in that?
We do not have AEDs in all of their vehicles at this point.
That's a pretty expensive combo.
They are expensive. We are getting some secondhand AEDs from the PD to put in some of our buildings, but we have not been able to fund enough to put AEDs in all the vehicles for our public works.
Okay, can we also see if the fire department is willing to help with that?
With the funding?
Yes, or supplying them. You want to check on that?
Sure, I was like asking them for money.
Actually, if I remember correctly, some of the hospitals do grants for those over the years. I know that the first time that AEDs went out to some of the local entities, it was the hospitals foundation that provided those. So, but again, those are very, very expensive items, and but I mean they're life-saving, no doubt about it. They're a great tool, but they are costly, and they have to be maintained.
Right, and we'll look into that as well. But as of the just current status, we don't have them in those trucks.
Any others? Councilor Peterson.
So I had an executive meeting for the Oregon Stability Commission this last week, and I found out that we have gotten like 4 new members appointed by the governor, which is great. One name I recognize, Christy Kotke, who was a Forest Grove City Councilor and on the League of Cities Women's Caucus Board of Directors with me. And so when I heard that name, I reached out. I was like, hey, welcome to the commission. She's actually doing school board these days. So I was pretty psyched, and so it's going to be kind of fun to have some fellow counselors in the commission. But the meeting was mainly focused on healthcare and issues that individuals that are deaf or hearing impaired are, and how they're being impacted with some of the ways that pharmaceuticals, like at the pharmacy, and how some of them just getting mailed out are being impacted because ASL is its own language, and you can't translate it straight across into written English because it's an entirely different dynamic. And so getting to hear about that was a big part of what our discussion was. We will be having our general Disability Commission meeting coming up, I believe, next month, which is cool because then we get to meet the new people, including somebody I already know, and that was kind of a nice surprise. So,
Any others? Councilor Morrow.
I had the pleasure of attending the Unity celebration at the high school. It was an event in which there was multiple different community members that expressed or got to express in different ways, whether it was singing or dancing, I guess their cultures. I did see Councilor McCarthy, he was performing, and I also got to see Councilor Duran. But it was a great celebration. I believe it was put on by LDS. And so they did a fantastic job of putting it together. It featured the chamber choir. It featured a lot of different cultural dances and singing. So it was a really great event. I want to read one quote from it, which I thought was great. It says, "Differences are not intended to separate, to alienate. We are different precisely in order to realize our need of one another." And so I thought it was wonderful to have a celebration of unity, a celebration of culture, and noticing that those things are actually what give us strength in this community. So hats off to the organizers and everybody that were there and all the performers. It was a great event.
Stand. Any others? All right, City Manager.
Sorry. I do want to echo what Mr. Barone said. I believe Julie Pusey was the one that kind of started this whole project, but certainly she had a lot of support from a lot of individuals. It was nice to see that it was from different ethnicities, it was from different ages, and it was just a nice event. I was very thankful, that a lot of entities came together and supported the event, and I don't know whether it's going to be an annual event, but it was really nice to just have positive messages, I guess. We often hear a lot of negativity, and for once, it was all about positive things. So I appreciated, the work, all of the people that were involved, and the talent that we got to see was so awesome as well. So thank you to all of the organizers.
Okay. Any other council comments? I see we have one of our youth advisors here today, Mr. Salazar. What can you tell us?
I just want to say hi to everyone. It's been a very long time since I've been here again, and I just want to I want to to show the interest that I have in Mr. Smith's Path project, because I myself will be helping in making those homes for us for the project, and I hope it'll help a lot of our hardworking citizens here in Hermiston who want to get out of the maybe an unfortunate situation where they are not able, when they are not being able to be housed. In other news, I want to talk about FBLA. It's called Future Business Leaders of America. It is a club at our school that will be soon competing in Atlanta, Georgia, and 13 of our students will be competing with 13 different events at nationals in Georgia, and 2 going to state championships in their events. And right now, my teacher, Denise Thornton, is will be soon opening fundraising for the for us to go to the event. And if you guys are interested in contacting her about it, you can contact her at denise.thornton@hermiston.org, and you can ask her questions about it if you want to help with that, with us going to Atlanta, Georgia, and presenting as Hermiston. And I also want to, I'm not sure if any of you heard recently at our school, and maybe you already have, but recently a student kind of set fire to one of the bathrooms, and I just wanted to talk about the unfortunate situation, but I also wanted to, I've been talking with some of our school counselors about changing it into more of a dress room for for some of the theater kids who usually always have to change in the bathrooms, and I'm not sure if any of you are able to help with that, but it would be greatly appreciated if we could at least get that more into the schools about changing it, since I'm not sure if there's a lot of push to bring back the bathroom since it's already been set on fire. And I think, no. I also want to talk about a choir event at the EOTech. If anyone wants to go, it'll be, give me 1 second. I think it will be on Wednesday. No. Where is it? Oh, it'll be on a Thursday, on April 27th, and it will be our choral festival. And if any of you are interested in going there, then you can come to EOTech. I think it is on the 27th, but that is all I have for today.
You have a starting time? Starting time for that?
Starting time, so I think the earliest, I think we're gonna go at like around in the morning. We're gonna head there at around 7:30, and I think we are presenting at like 9.
9 a.m.?
9 a.m.
Okay. So, Fire Festival, EOTech, Thursday, 9 a.m. Liberty Square. Great, I appreciate you bringing this stuff forward. We love hearing from you guys. Mr. City Manager.
I just have I'll be attending the Seaside LOC conference starting tomorrow for the next couple of days. I know the mayor's already there. I believe Councilor Harden is already there as well. So we'll be there representing Hermiston. That's all I have.
Well, that is good to hear. All right, so at this time, we're going to adjourn the City Council meeting and convene the Urban Renewal Agency meeting. And then call it to order. New business, public hearing, supplemental budget number 2 for fiscal year July 1, 2022 to June 30, 2023 for HERO resolution number 18. First off, are there any declarations of a conflict of interest from the HERO members? Seeing none. Hearing guidelines will now be presented by city staff.
Yes, so the Hermiston Urban Renewal Agency is holding a public hearing to consider a supplemental budget for the fiscal year 22-23. Board will take public testimony on this issue and make a decision at this meeting. The hearing process will begin with the staff report by city staff. Following presentation of the staff report, the board will take public testimony. People wishing to testify should limit testimony to not more than 5 minutes. Unless a longer period is provided by the board, written testimony will also be accepted from all parties. After everyone wishing to testify has had an opportunity to speak, the board will close the public hearing and enter deliberations. Once the public hearing is closed, no further testimony will be received.
All right, so this hearing is now open. City staff will now present its report. Mr. City Manager.
Yes, so this is the other side of the supplemental budget, at least a portion of it. As I described, the west parking lot was constructed with funds from the Urban Renewal Agency. It's $320,000, and so the budget is adjusted to allow for that transfer to the City Hall Construction Fund. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So basically, you're just putting money in and taking it right back out.
Yeah, this is
Or
kind
taking
of
out
a little bit backwards, but yes.
All right. Any public testimony? People wishing to speak are asked to state their name, mailing address, limit testimony to 5 minutes. Are there any persons who wish to speak? Seeing none. Hearing is now closed. So, any comments, questions, concerns from the HURA members? Seeing none, we will move to resolution number 18 to supplement fiscal year 2023 HURA budget. Mr. City Manager.
Any questions, I'd be happy to address them.
Any questions, comments, concerns? Public comment? Seeing none, can I get a motion to adopt HURA resolution number 18 and lay upon the record?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Linton, seconded by Ms. Duran, that we adopt HURA resolution number 18 and lay upon the record. Roll call.
Yes.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Okay, next. An application for a facade grant has been submitted for property located at 205 South Highway 395. City Manager Smith.
I'll ask Mr. Spencer to address this.
Yeah, this will actually be the first grant that we're doing under the new guidelines and eligibility matching that we adopted earlier this year. And this is a facade grant for, as you said, 205 South Highway 395, which is the site of the old BP station at the intersection of Hurlburt and 395. They've already begun a little bit of construction on some of the hardscape. And what is going in there is a new drive-up coffee, Human Being. And under the provisions of their grant, basically, literally everything they're doing there is eligible for grant matching because it's a complete demolition of everything there. And what they applied for with their grant is matching towards landscaping, paving, lighting, and signage. And the budget for that is $95,000. And so under our new guidelines, we will match up to $20,000 of that. The Planning Commission reviewed this at their meeting earlier this month, and after they scored, and those score sheets are part of your packet, they recommended a 50% match, which would be a maximum of $20,000.
Okay. Any HURA member comments? Seeing none. Any public comment?
I heard that they were thinking about raising Rochelle Jack, 615 West Highland Avenue, here in Hermiston. I'm just wondering, does that have anything to do with our taxes or anything going up?
The money that comes out of that comes out of the
Yeah, so the Urban Renewal Agency, we fund these grants out of a tax increment district, basically. So 2012, 13 values within the district were frozen. All the money above that is used to fund projects to better the district. And so businesses are, one of the programs that's available is a facade grant, and businesses can apply, as Mr. Spencer stated, up to $20,000 is the maximum grant. And there's been a number of other grants throughout the district. Prior to this is the most recent one.
It does not come out of the general fund.
It is not,
This
it's not general fund dollars. These are targeted to kind of
For the reason this was set
bolster
up.
up this area, correct, the downtown district.
I guess a little bit of my confusion was I thought we were gonna talk, or maybe it's already gonna happen, but it looks like it's almost over. There's gonna be a 5% increase in like all the utilities.
That was not on our deal for tonight.
Wow.
If you have wanted to, we have opened up the meeting for anybody for the audience. You asked anyone want to come up for anything that wasn't on the agenda. That's when you could come up for the 5 minutes and talk about any subject matter that you wanted to discuss or share. So you missed that opportunity, sorry.
Okay, any other public comment in regards to this? Okay, we'll back up to hear a member comment.
I just had a couple of questions. I was looking at the reports from the planning, not the planning commission, but the commissioners, and there was some variation in their scoring. I do want to honor, you know, the work that committee does. At the same time, I guess, is the applying party here to ask any questions from them?
Not tonight.
Okay.
They did attend the planning commission meeting.
Okay. I guess I do see the facade and I see how it looks. It looks amazing. Anything I think in that core is going to make the city look much better and more, I guess, uplivability. But I was wondering more in terms of walkability. I know it's a drive-through. I guess I just wanted to ask more particular questions about how the rendering, about, I guess, the rendering and the walkability and how the landscaping is going to look.
Yeah. They do have a walk-up window as well that will be serviced from the sidewalk on Robert. And then they'll have a small outside seating area that's between the building and the Highway 395.
All right. Okay. That's about it.
All right, so can I get a motion to approve the $20,000 match for improvements to 205 South Highway 395?
So moved.
Second.
Then moved by Councilor Meyer, second by here a member Meyer, here a member Linton,
Whatever you need.
Jackie and Jackie. Okay, can I get a roll call?
Yes.
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 And motion passes. Any other comments, concerns for us today? Yes, sir.
I just would like to ask if the next time, if we have an application process like this, if we could encourage the party also to attend the council meeting. Just because if we're going to supersede, I guess, what the commissioners do, I would like to ask direct questions to.
We can request it, but.
Strongly encourage. I would like that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. We're adjourned.